All right, welcome everybody. We're just gonna give everyone a minute to get their sandwiches, get settled in, and then I'll kick this thing off. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. I know Jeff's got a lot of great content to cover. So I'll with a quick intro. Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. My name is Christina Caesar and I manage marketing and communication at Synergy Technical. And I have the honor of introducing today's speaker and moderating today's session. Today's topic is a deep dive into Microsoft Copilot in the Power Platform. Some of you may have joined us in July when Jeff did his first webinar on the same topic after the announcements made at Microsoft Build 2023. However, if you missed it, you can find the webinar recording on our YouTube channel. Just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and please drop any questions or comments within the Q&A function in Teams. Quick, just a little bit about us. Synergy Technical is an IT consulting firm headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. We have clients in over 70 countries in all 50 states and manage over 3 million licenses of Microsoft 365 for our clients through our licensing and managed services practice. And now I have the pleasure of introducing today's speaker, Jeff Lau. Jeff is one of our best business analysts and SharePoint developers that specializes in the Power Platform suite. Previously, we used to say you could always find and can still find Jeff working on client projects and development. But over the last year, he's done some amazing webinars with the marketing team, and you can find a playlist of his previous webinar recordings on our YouTube channel. And with that, Jeff, I'll hand things over to you so you can add another one to the docket.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you, Christina. Good to see everyone today. Thank you for joining me again. My name is Jeff Lau, and today we are going to be looking at the Copilot inside the Power Platform. And if you haven't heard of Copilot before, I would be pretty surprised. It's quite the topic right now in the Microsoft space. But essentially, what is Copilot? It is an assistant that basically allows you to streamline your work by simply not only answering questions for you, but it can also perform tasks for you as well. And so what I want to do first is kind of explain to you how the Copilot works. It can be pretty complex, but we're not going to get into kind of the deeper details of how it works. But I think it is good to kind of understand the basics around how the underlinings of Copilot actually works. So if you look here on the screen, kind of have an image that'll kind of take us through how the Copilot works. And essentially you provide a user prompt to the Copilot, and it basically puts it through what's called a large language model. Essentially is an artificial intelligence model that will basically take your prompt, throw it through some algorithms, and then output a response that is hopefully helpful to you. And as I said, can even perform different tasks that you might have as well. And so that's kind of the Copilot in a nutshell. And we have Copilot for all the Power Platform tools, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages, Power Virtual Agents. Today, we're specifically going to focus on the Copilot for Power Apps and Power Automate. So what I want to do first is just kind of give you an overview of what you should expect in the demonstration coming up a little bit later. So what is the Power Apps Copilot? Basically, when you visit the Power Apps homepage now, you will see this nice text box here at the top of the screen, and this is your Copilot. And what you'll do is, say you have an application that you want to create, you will provide the Copilot with a simple summary of what you want the app to be, and you can be pretty detailed with this. And once you do that, you can submit it, and then in about 10 to 15 seconds, Copilot will go ahead and create a full, working application for you, which is quite amazing, as you'll see just a little bit later. But another cool thing is that Copilot will go ahead and follow you around as you create your app. And so you might want to, add additions to your application or, just make some changes. Copilot will be there to assist you with those changes. Another thing I will show briefly is this new Copilot control that you can add to your apps. And essentially, this is a control that your users will be able to interact with. It's basically a Copilot inside of your applications. And so your users can ask questions about the underlying data of your app. And so that'll make a little more sense when I show that in a bit. But that is the Power Apps Copilot. And so the Power Automate Copilot is very similar in the way that it functions, but obviously instead of creating applications, you're creating workflows. And so you'll provide the Power Automate Copilot with a brief description of what kind of workflow you're trying to create, and the Copilot will go ahead and spit out a flow that's already been pre-constructed for you. And so this is really neat, especially if you're a beginner and you're not exactly sure how to create flows yourself. This is a great way to go ahead and start. And again, just like the Power Apps Copilot, this will follow you around, and if you want to make changes or edits to your workflow, the Copilot will be there to assist you with those. Another cool thing about the Copilot is it can simply just answer questions that you might have about your workflow or just Power Automate in general. And so you can ask questions to the Copilot, and it will go ahead and give you responses. But that's really all of the slides I wanted to show you guys today. I want to jump into an actual demonstration so you can see this Copilot in action. And one thing I will mention is I'm also going to show you, think of this as kind of a bonus that I'm going to show you guys, but it's also utilizing what's called ChatGPT, which is very similar technology as the Copilot, but it can also help you with your application development inside of Power Apps and Power Automate. So I'll show that as well. Let's go ahead and jump over to my browser and we will get started. All right, so here I am at the Power Apps homepage, and again, you'll see this nice text box here at the top, and it says, use everyday words to describe what your app should collect, track, list, or manage. So this is where we're going to go ahead and describe the application that we want our Copilot to create. And so today we're going to use the use case of a time off request application, and I've used this kind of use case in previous webinars that I've done, but I think it's a great one to kind of show off this Copilot feature. So let's go ahead and give our Copilot a prompt. And so I'll say something like this: I need an app that allows my employees to submit time off requests. And so I'll type in my prompt and then I'll click the submit button. And so the first thing that Copilot's going to do is it's actually going to read over your prompt, and it's going to create a Dataverse table where you will store all of the data that you gather from your application. So in this case, where we want users to be able to submit new time off requests to this application. And so if you'll see here that we have this new table called time off requests that's been created for us automatically. And you'll see that we have a bunch of fields here. So we have an ID field, which is just a unique identifier for each new time off request that we get in our app. We have a name field, an employee name field. So that's a little odd that we have two of the same field, so we might want to change that a little bit later. But we have a start and end date for our time off request, and then a status field as well. And so automatically, Copilot will produce us this a nice table where we can start to store all of our data within our application. And if you look over here on the right side, you'll see that we have our Copilot that's going to go ahead and follow us around, and we can make changes to our table using the Copilot. So for instance, let's say we want to change a field name of one of our fields in our table. So status, for instance. Maybe we want to change it to approval status, let's say. So we can just type that into our Copilot. We'll just say change the status field to approval status. And Copilot will say that it's working on it, and hopefully it'll go ahead and change this field for us. And there we go. And so you can use it to change the name of your fields in your table, but you can also add new fields, you can delete fields. And so right in the beginning, we saw that there are two employee name fields, this one name and employee name. So let's get rid of the employee name field. We can just simply say delete the employee name field. That should go ahead and take that away for us. Here we go. Looking good. And so the last thing we'll do is let's add a new field. Let's say that we want our users to be able to input the amount of hours that they want to take off. So we'll create a field called maybe hours requested. So add a new field called hours requested. And what you can also do is add, you can specify the data type that you want your field to be. So maybe since this is hours, maybe we make it a whole number field as a whole number field. So this should give us a new field here at the end of our table. And there we go. And you can also see that it gives us this sample data automatically. So this will be nice when we get into our application. We don't have to create any data. We already have some items that we can go ahead and work with. But you can see how easy it is to go ahead and use the Copilot to make changes to this table. And if you look over here on the left-hand side, you'll see this suggestions box here. And if you're new to Copilot, this will give you some ideas of how you can interact with the Copilot to make some changes. But once you have your table, it's ready to go. You can go ahead and create your app. So you'll see this create app button here at the bottom. And when I click that, in about 10 to 15 seconds, we're going to have a full working application that's ready to go. And typically it does take around 10 to 15 seconds. I think it may take a little longer since we're in a webinar here, but just bear with me and we'll let this load up.
We love technology. Great job.
You.
I'm gonna go ahead and drop to the users while it's loading. I'll drop the link to Jeff's playlist on our YouTube channel for his other content.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds good. Yeah, it may take just a little longer since we're on here, but
Yeah.
just know that this is creating a full working application in a very short period of time. So regardless, it's a very impressive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about done here.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, you can use this opportunity to steal a bite of your own sandwich.
Right. This is definitely as long as it's ever taken, I'll tell you that.
Again, technology, classic.
I promise you, if you guys do this yourselves, you'll see the actual speed that this takes, and it's very impressive. But there we go. It looks like we're finally loading up. All right, so you can see here right off the bat that we have this application, and what I'll do is I'll put this in play mode and we can kind of explore what we have here. So it gave us this nice banner called time off requests, and we also have this gallery you can see here with all of those items, those sample items that it gave us. And we can simply just click through this, and you can see here we have our form on the right side that displays our time off request information. And so here, you can it gives us the ability to edit items if you wanted to. And you can also delete, items as well. So maybe we just delete that one just to show you the functionality of this application. And we can also, it gives us this search box. We can search across all of our time off requests, and you can create a new request as well. So maybe we create a new request here. I'm going to call this Cloud Administrator. That's just the name of my account that I'm using here. And that will come in handy a little later when I show you something else here. Maybe we request 8 hours. And so here we have this ID field. And so, we might want to get rid of this field because we don't really need to display that for our user. I'll just pick an end date here and a time. We'd also probably want to get rid of the approval status as well. This is something that, is kind of just happening in the background. And we'll do a start date for today. But you can see there we go. We created an item. Click this little check up here. And there you go. We got a new item in our table. All right. Another cool thing about this is that it is fully responsive as well. And so I can kind of show you that here. As I move and adjust the screen size, you can see here that the app will go ahead and adjust as well, which is really nice. So this is kind of how it would look on like a mobile device. But if you know anything about Power Apps at all, you'll know how difficult it is to go and create this, functionality. So the fact that it, gives you a full responsive application right out of the box is just really awesome. All right, and so if you look up here, you'll see that we have this Copilot icon. And so if we click that, it's actually gives us the ability to start interacting with our Copilot here. And you may want to make changes to your application. Really, this is just a base application to start with. And obviously, according to your business requirements, you'll need to add a lot more things to it, of course, but you can use the Copilot to help you do that. And so, for instance, maybe you want to add another screen. You can just say, add a screen called, let's just say calendar screen. Maybe you're creating a screen that allows your users to view all of their time off requests on like a calendar. You can use the Copilot to create that for us. And again, typically doesn't take this long to work for us, but I think that the Teams meeting definitely makes this longer. Okay, it's having trouble doing that. Let's see. It also gives you these options below here. They're basically pre-scripted prompts that you can go ahead and ask the Copilot. And so I clicked on one of those. We'll see if it allows us to do that here. Something's giving me trouble here. I'm not really sure why it's not allowing me to do that. All right, well, let me do this. Let's see if we can add. So I added a screen manually there without using the Copilot. Let's see if we can add a button. So we can typically I'd be able to say add a button, and you can also specify different properties that you want to add to your controls. We'll also add a green button labeled. Just call it my new button. So it seems as though we're having some trouble connecting to, I guess it's just the Copilot server. I'm assuming this has something to do with us being on a webinar, but you know, this has worked fine for me in the past. But it looks like we're having some trouble here. Yeah, it's just giving me an error. Usually you can, you know, use this Copilot to add, you know, new controls to your app. But I'm just having difficulty doing that.
Jeff, I know it's not ideal, but maybe if you turn your camera
Yeah.
off, you'll have more bandwidth to connect. But
Yeah, we can try that. I'll do that.
or we can just move. Or we can move on. You know.
Yeah, we'll give it one more shot. I would like to show you this part. It is neat how you can do this. It's worked for me in the past. Let's see. Let's try to add a button here. We'll just add a regular button. Yeah, it's just not one to work for us. But if you guys go and, you know, try this out yourselves, I'll turn the camera back on. It should work for you, no problem. I'm just assuming that this has something to do with the webinar that we're doing here. But let's just go ahead and continue. I did mention that I wanted to also show you guys how you can use ChatGPT to go ahead and help you with, you know, building out your application as well. You know, you have this Copilot that allows you to, you know, add simple controls and things to your screen. But I will say, you know, there are some limitations to it. As of now, it's, you know, still in the beginning phases. And, you know, Microsoft is definitely going to be coming out with more updates to make it more, you know, comprehensive and have it do a lot more things. But since it's kind of like that right now, you can use ChatGPT to help you, you know, kind of edit your applications as well. So I'm going to show that. So for instance, you know, we have this gallery here. Let me zoom in a little bit. If I click on the gallery, you'll see here that we have up here in the top, in the items property, we have this formula here, and this is basically allowing us to search across all of our time off requests using the search input control that we have up here. So that's this search input. And so we're searching across the time off requests using the search input, and then we're searching across all of those fields on our time off request table. And so if you have no idea what's going on with this formula at all, that's perfectly fine. That's not the point of this. But maybe you want to modify this formula so it only shows the time off request for the specific user who's accessing this application. So in this case, it's me. I only want this to show me my time off request. For security purposes, maybe you don't want your users to see all the other employees' requests, which is valid. And so we want to change this formula to reflect that. So we can use ChatGPT to help us do that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this formula. And I have ChatGPT open here in a separate tab. And so you can see this looks very similar. If you've never used ChatGPT, it just looks very similar to the Copilot here. And we can just give ChatGPT a prompt, and it should output us something that we can use. And so what I'll say is, I have this prompt already scripted out for us. So I have a Power App that uses this formula in the items property. And this is where we can go ahead and paste in that formula that we copied. And we want to tell ChatGPT how we want it to modify our formula. And so we want to edit this formula so that it also filters the items where that name field, which is the field in our time off request table, we want to filter where that equals the signed in user. And so if I go ahead and submit that, ChatGPT will go ahead and analyze that formula that we gave it in the instructions and produce us a formula that has been modified. And so we can have no idea what's going on here, and we can simply just copy this code. We'll go back to our Power Apps, and what we'll do is we'll just delete that previous code, and then we will just paste in that new formula. And there we go. So if I play my app, you'll see that I am now just seeing the time off request that's specific to me, the one that I created. And so I show that because you may be using Power Apps and Power Automate, and you may not be extremely versed on how to create Power Effects formulas, and that's where ChatGPT can come in and help you. You just simply ask ChatGPT, what you're trying to accomplish, and it's very smart in that it knows all the Power Effects formulas. It can help you create those automatically. So it's really neat. The last thing I want to show you before we move on to the Power Automate Copilot is that Copilot control that you can add. So what I'll do is I'll just insert. You can see this Copilot control. I'll add that to the screen here. All right, so what this control is, it's going to allow our users to have kind of like a ChatGPT Copilot experience themselves as they access the application. So we'll just move this across the screen. And what you can do is you can connect this to a data source. And so maybe we want our users to be able to ask questions about their time off requests. So what we want to do is connect this control to our time off request table. And so over here in the properties, we can go to the first property, data source. and click time off requests. And this should go ahead and change our control to kind of look like that Copilot experience here where we can ask questions. And so if I play the app here, our users can come to this screen and maybe they ask how many time off requests have I submitted so far or something like that. So how many time off requests have I, and we'll just say my name here, submitted. Okay, maybe we'll just rephrase it. Let's just do how many time off requests have been submitted. So this should be able to look across the time off request table and tell us here. And it's not wanting to. How many time off requests have been submitted so far? Yeah, I think we're just having issues with the Copilot server, of course, during this webinars. It's great.
And this is one of those days.
It is. But you can see how cool this is to be able to allow your users to be able to ask questions about the data within your application. And you can also connect this control to external websites as well if you want them to be able to ask questions about data on a different website, maybe a SharePoint site or any site really. You can go ahead and put the URL of those sites in here and allow your user to kind of query information from those. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to show you with the Power Apps Copilot. I apologize, we're having some issues here for the demo, but I think you guys get the idea of how neat this technology is. So let's go ahead and head over to the Power Automate, and I'll kind of show you around this Copilot. And it looks very similar. Here's the Power Apps homepage. We have this nice new text box here at the top where we can go ahead and provide the Copilot with a prompt. In this case, we're trying to create a workflow. And so we'll kind of keep the same use case here. We're creating a time off request workflow. Basically, whenever a new workflow gets submitted to that time off request table, we want to go ahead and trigger maybe an approval workflow that maybe goes to a manager or HR or something so it can get approved. So again, we'll just provide this with a prompt. So maybe we say something like create approval that triggers when a new time off request is submitted to and we need to specify the table that we're working with as well. So new submitted to the Dataverse table, time off requests. And so I'll click enter, and it should go ahead and create us a workflow. And so you can see here that it's give us this nice trigger here, which is basically when a new row is added to that table, it'll go ahead and trigger this workflow. And we also have this action step as well, which is actually creating the approval itself. But pretty basic workflow. Maybe we want to add a little more complexity. The great thing about Copilot is you can go back up into the Copilot and just add more to it. So maybe we want to add a condition step. So if it gets approved, maybe we want to change the approval status to approved. And on the contrary, if it gets rejected, we'll want it to change to rejected. So we'll go ahead and add that in. Wait 1 second. So we can just go to the end of our prompt here, and I'll just add an additional statement saying if approved, change the approval status to approved, and if rejected, rejected. And I'll just resubmit that. And you'll see that our suggested flow has some additions to it. So not only are we triggering and creating that approval, but we also have this condition step down here, which if the approval is approved, we'll go ahead and update our status accordingly. And so once you have a flow that looks good to you, you can go ahead and click next. This is just simply connecting to Dataverse and the approvals application. And then we'll click Create Flow. All right, and so if you are editing a workflow using the new Copilot, you'll first see that we have this nice new interface that we can work with. And it looks a lot different than the previous Power Automate Studio. But in my opinion, it's a lot better, a lot cleaner, and a lot easier to work with. And so you'll see here that we have our workflow that's been created for us. And all we have to do now is simply just add our parameters to our flow. So for instance, our trigger, if I click here, it'll want us to add the table that we're working with, which is of course our time off request table. And so we would just type in time off request, and there it is. And so we could go through all of these and just change, our parameters. That is something that you do have to do. Copilot's not going to do all of that for you. So there's some steps that are manual. But you'll see that we have this Copilot that's going to go ahead and follow us around, and we can use it to make additions to our workflow. So for instance, maybe we want to add an email at the end of our flow that's sent out to our user whenever their time off request is approved. So maybe we say something like this. Add a send email action at the end of the workflow that sends an email to the person who submitted the time off request. So that's exactly what we want. I'll just submit that into our Copilot. And we should have a new action added to our flow here. There it is. Took a little bit to add it, but we see that we have our send email action here. So of course we would need to click on the action and go ahead and add, the parameters. Who's the email going to, the subject, and the body. And again, I think later updates on this Copilot will eventually be able to, tell Copilot that we want, who we want the email to go to, what we want the subject to be, and all that can be added using the Copilot feature as well. But again, I would also encourage you to use ChatGPT when you can, when you're creating your workflows, because there's a lot of things like creating expressions. If you're not familiar with the expressions inside of Power Automate, ChatGPT can, definitely help you create those. Another thing you can use the Copilot to do is just simply ask questions about your workflow. So maybe we say something like, how many action steps see here. How many actions are in this workflow? It should be able to tell us, and even so it does. It tells us that there are 5 actions in the flow, and it also gives us the names of each of those actions. let's see if we can ask it kind of a broader question here, like maybe how many actions can I have in a workflow? So a basic Power Automate question. See if it can answer that. Okay, yeah, it says there's no limit to the number of actions. However, it is important to keep in mind that the more actions you have, the complex the workflow will become and the more difficult it will be to manage. So that's kind of cool that it gives us information, about the workflow as a whole. But I'm not going to go ahead and finish this workflow out. I think you understand that you can simply just give Copilot a nice prompt of what kind of workflow you want to fill out or you want to create, and we'll go ahead and create it automatically for you. And of course, you can continue to utilize it to make additions and things like that. But that's really all I wanted to show you guys today with the Power Apps and Power Automate Copilot. I hope this was really cool. And again, I apologize for the tech issues that we were having earlier, but I definitely recommend you go and try this out for yourself, and you can see that it'll be much faster and it will work a lot better for you when you do it. But yeah, I think we can go ahead and move on into a question and answer period. If you had any questions during the webinar, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move into that.
First of all, Jeff, great job. I know, like, we all know technology sometimes is not our friend, and usually it's at like the most when you need it the most. But you took that in stride. So, but okay. So, y'all feel free to still drop questions in or comments in the Q&A section. But I do have a couple for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
So the first one is, will this Copilot feature need to be turned on for my tenant?
Yeah, so right now the Copilot feature is in preview, so you should be able to access it if you have just a standard Office 365 license. And you should be able to go to Power Apps, Power Automate, and be able to utilize this feature. I do believe that there are certain regions that this isn't supported for, but I think all the regions in the U.S. you can access this feature, so you should be good. But if you have any issues with seeing that new functionality, you can reach out to your IT admin and they can help you get that turned on if for some reason you're not able to see it.
Awesome. Okay, and then so next one is so for Copilot and Power Automate, when editing a flow, do you have to give it specific instructions, or can it analyze your flow and give you suggestions or answer questions if you have them? That's a good
right. Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, you currently have to actually explicitly give Copilot instructions to create your flow. It's not going to give you suggestions. That was one of the first questions that I had as well. And again, I think Microsoft's going to consistently come out with updates as time goes on that makes Copilot better and better. So eventually, I would expect that we would that it would have the ability to suggest certain actions or certain things for your applications. But yeah, I think we'll just kind of see that as updates come.
And then there's a question. So is Copilot included in the E3 license?
Yeah. So again, it's in preview right now. So I can't say how licensing is going to be when it comes out.
I think actually, so it's going to be included or supported in E5, E3, and then Business Premium and Business Standard. However, it's not included with your existing license. It will be an additional cost, I think, is what they're saying. But again, yeah, to your point, they're all in preview. So those are the only questions that I have in the chat right now. Again, if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to drop them in. But I will use this opportunity to say, one, thank you, Jeff, but also thank you everyone else for joining us. You will receive a copy of the recording to this webinar, but it will also be included on our YouTube channel. And I already dropped a link in the chat to some of Jeff's previous work, but you can find a lot of great content there. And then we also have a webinar next Thursday. Adrian is doing on Windows device management, if you're interested. So you can find the registration link for that on our events page. And yeah, keep up with us on our social and our events page for more upcoming great stuff. And with that, as my boss always says, I'll give you 15 minutes back in your day. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Jeff, again.
Of course, yeah. Thank you guys.